The civil rights movement's religious commitment to non-violence as a strategy for achieving social justice could transform the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. A Muslim, Palestinian, and Jewish Israel could thrive under the tolerant umbrella of American statehood, the same way that Mormon Utah does today. Americans' knee-jerk negative reactions like, "It's too far," "It will cost too much," "It will promote terrorism," can be successfully addressed. Hawaii is 7,800 kilometers from Washington, D.C. Israel and Palestine are 9,500 kilometers. Only a 2-hour greater difference in flight time. Modern technology is shrinking distance, making even more practical the idea of a republic that straddles North America and the Middle East. Temporarily, Israel and Palestine are much closer to the United States than most other states were at the time they joined the Union. It's a small world after all. The increase in America's GNP from adding the vibrant Israeli economy and the efficiency of Palestinian labor will contribute more to the U.S. economy than the cost of integrating Israel and Palestine into the United States. Indeed, an economic renaissance will bloom all along Israel and Palestine's borders, to the great benefit of Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, and Egypt as well. Terrorists do not need passports. Adding Israel and Palestine to the U.S. will, if anything, reduce rather than increase terrorism. Indeed, it is our failure to achieve peace via a sustainable solution that is creating this explosion of terrorist threats. Of course, hardened terrorists have not had any difficulty entering the United States during 9/11 or subsequently. An estimated 1 million people per year enter the United States surreptitiously across our porous borders. Terrorists don't need a Ramallah to New York daily flight to gain access to the United States. Israel, of course, must be concerned first and foremost with its security and its identity. The status quo endangers both as weapons of mass destruction become ever smaller and more portable, and as demographics make Jews a minority in their own land. The Two Stars Plan solves both issues by making Israeli security part and parcel of American security. A free, secure Palestine that is part of the United States will be a great magnet for Palestinian populations, helping to ensure a Jewish majority population within an American state of Israel. The status quo endangers both, as weapons of mass destruction become ever smaller and more portable, and as demographics make Jews a minority in their own land. From realizing national aspirations to achieving economic prosperity to gaining reparations, Palestinians will be the greatest winners. Of course, a minority of Palestinians, as well as a minority of Israelis, will oppose any sort of change. Fortunately, all it takes is a majority vote on a statehood referendum for the Two Stars Plan to come into being for each people. A minority of Texans and Californians opposed those republics joining the United States. Subsequently, they opened up restaurants and hotels. The leaders of terrorist groups are basically horribly warped entrepreneurs. The Two Stars Plan will give them so many ways to legally get rich that all but the most warped souls will see the light. The Two Stars Plan would give Arab leaders from Saudi Arabia to Egypt reason to celebrate. It would add to their people's greatness while taking nothing away. Indeed, by adding Palestine into the United States, America would itself qualify for membership in the Arab League. Regional stability, expansion of pan-Arab influence, and a better quality of life for Palestinians are three independent reasons for the Arab world to support Palestinian statehood in the United States. The European Union would have legitimate concerns. The Two Stars Plan must demonstrate that there is no American intention to occupy or annex any of the oil-exporting Arab Gulf states. Geography does not imply hegemony. Israel and Palestine could not become part of the European Union because while Russia is considered part of the EU, Israel is not. The current problem is entirely the consequence of the UN partition from 1947. It's taken over 60 years to clean up this mess, but we are ready to do it. Here is a timeline of the necessary steps in the Two Stars Plan. Grassroots campaigns. Critical mass of support. Religious groups, businesses, government, international support. Israeli and Palestinian leaders express willingness. United States President claims initiative, asks Congress to issue a formal invitation. Israeli and Palestinian governments formally request U.S. statehood. U.S. Congress adopts a welcoming resolution. Israel and Palestine draft state constitutions. Details are debated and state constitutions put to the national referenda vote. Majority vote of Congress welcomes Israel and Palestine as 51st and 52nd American states. I know this sounds like a big agenda and a lot to do, but it's no 10 Commandments. If Moses could deliver our people across the desert in 40 years, then surely all of us here today and our friends and families and fellow citizens can fulfill God's promise with this logical approach to sharing the sovereignty of the promised land in just 4 years. The Two Stars Plan should become a widespread movement, including grassroots organizations in Palestine, Israel, and the United States. This plan will only happen if the people want it. I am confident that if 1 million signatures came to President Obama on a petition for Palestinian and Israeli statehood in the United States, he would, with tears in his eyes, officially invite the governments of Israel and Palestine to join us as the 51st and 52nd states, and then urge Congress to vote by a simple majority in favor of extending statehood. And it all could happen in 4 years or less.